I'm Aria Schwartz, along with the great Rachel Galligan. Welcome to the Winsidr Show, where it's all about the W. Excited to have my partner back for this one. The two-time defending champs are looking for number 3. Rachel joins me to discuss the WNBA's most dominant team right now. Welcome back to the show. Very excited to have Hall of Famer alongside me, Rachel Galligan. The Las Vegas Aces, the back-to-back defending champs. So much to discuss, so much greatness on one roster. A lot of jewelry, too, after they win their second championship. Rachel, recap briefly, summarize. If I was living under a rock, what happened to the Aces last year?
Man, well, like you said, you'd have to be living under a rock to not know this, but repeat champs, back-to-back, ended up taking New York in the finals, beat them in 4 games. That last game, I'm sure everybody remembers how fun that one was. Ended up beating the Liberty by 1 point, 70-69. They were without Chelsea Gray, Candace Parker, and Kia Stokes. So definitely we're kind of, I don't want to say limping into it, but remember the heroics of that game and just how big Kayla George was stepping up in that final game. Won it on the road, continued to just really prove how dominant this franchise is, how this franchise continues to push the envelope for the league. Their overall record was 34-6. So that takes us into what is the beginning of the 24 WNBA season. I mean, we'll talk a little bit here in a second about kind of, the offseason moves and just kind of quickly recap that. But I think, the biggest thing is it's all eyes on the Aces. I think that's who everyone's trying to chase. We had moments in the last couple of months where we felt like maybe that distance, there was a bigger separator in terms of the offseason moves that they made. Obviously the news of Candace Parker, we'll get into that here in a second. Not being on the team, I think makes a little bit of a difference in terms of my perception of that. But yeah, I mean, the big storyline is Las Vegas. That's the team to beat. Reigning champs. Can they make it 3? We're going to be asking that question all season long. I think this team that we saw last year, they proved they have that dog in them. They just do. There's no, like the Denver Nuggets right now, who won last year, and now they're just like limping into this thing, look like they have zero fire in them whatsoever. That's not the case with the Las Vegas Aces. And, just the edge that this team plays with, the camaraderie, the chemistry. Like I said, everyone's trying to chase them, and it's just been really impressive to watch this franchise. And I don't know that you could make a valid argument for anyone right now to be a favorite over them.
I'm just going to remind our followers or listeners to make sure you check out our show notes for our sponsor and affiliate links. If you're looking to get any WNBA merch, we have affiliations with basically every organization that does it. So when you use our links, we get a kickback. It helps us provide the coverage we do, and also helps these people who are making the merch get money off it. And if you're into betting, we just started working with some online sports books, so definitely check that out. If you have a gambling problem, please get help using the phone number in the show notes. Rachel, you've touched on it all. I agree with most of what you said. Some things I have to disagree because I can't fully agree with you. Let's run down real quick, set the stage of kind of who they lost, who they got. And then I do want to dive into that Candace Parker extending the gap, shortening the gap aspect, because I think that is a huge aspect. So in free agency, you could argue that they also got Candace Parker and lost Candace Parker. They lost Kayla George. They got Megan Gustafson, Kate Martin, Emma Cannon, and Deja Fair onto this roster. And when throughout this offseason, at every stage, in my opinion, I have seen the Las Vegas Aces extend the gap. And I think the biggest gap extender was Candace Parker re-signing.
100%.
Assuming that she was going to be healthy. Obviously, I think you touched on this a little bit, or we were talking about it before we hopped on, but losing that is a huge blow. And obviously, she was prepared. She signed. She announced her retirement on the first day of camp, which to me says her body wasn't ready for it. She wanted to go. Her body wasn't. And she had to accept, old Father Time saying it's time to hang it up. I think we're going to have to probably do a whole episode on her legacy.
For sure.
But let's just talk about what her not being there means for this roster that honestly, with Candace Parker at times just looked like poetry in motion.
Yeah, I mean, you're adding a former MVP, another WNBA champion to this roster. The versatility, the experience. I don't think that you can replicate. You can't replicate that. You can't.
There's not two Candace Parkers.
Yeah, you can't. You can't all of a sudden go, especially when they found out when this was going to take place. I mean, in terms of free agency had played out. It had been announced that she had signed to come back and was going to try and play this year, pending obviously the progression of her health, and clearly it didn't work out. So, okay, now the franchise has to pivot a little bit post Candace Parker era. I mean, that's that gap I'm talking about. If Candace Parker's healthy and she's playing on this team, it's like, man, I don't know, because she could fill so many different roles with this team any given night. She could go be, a scorer. She could be a facilitator. She could do so many different things. And so clearly that's not the case now. So now you're looking at, first off, I think they had a phenomenal draft.
We didn't even get to that. Their draft, that was the next stage. It was almost criminal for them to get the players that they got.
Unbelievable draft.
Where they got them.
Because their positioning. Fair is such a talent, and not even remotely surprised that Fair's still on the roster. Clearly things can and will still happen. We know that, okay, rosters are set right now, but anybody who follows this league and understands there is still movement that can be made and things that can happen. But having Fair and Kate Martin on the roster, and I am a huge Kate Martin fan, just having the luxury of studying Iowa as closely as I was able to the last couple of years, I'm not surprised at all how much this team, how much Becky Hammon and her teammates enjoy her, and the element and the presence that she brings on the court is something different. I'm not surprised. I think she's got a little bit of a massive following of her own, and people are super excited. So I love the element of Fair and Martin. Getting those two players at the positions that they'd had in the draft was unbelievable. Didn't even have a first round pick. And so now you've got two players that were picked up in the later rounds and on their starting roster.
Oh, and Liz, and you get that Kitley, and you get that because of the injury, you get
for
that
sure.
say like,
yeah. Well,
criminal.
Well, Liz Kitley one, I could have a whole podcast ranting about the Liz Kitley thing, but yes, because of she's a stash pick because of her injury, and okay, well, to be determined where she's at a year from now in her progression. But this was ACC Player of the Year, one of the most dominant scoring bigs in the country. We'll see how her game translates to the WNBA. A lot of people have different opinions to that, but to be able to get those three was unbelievable in the draft. What a success. And then we'll talk about Megan Gustafson, who has found a way to carve out a job in this league by just being steady, by being consistent, by not making mistakes, by being a pro and doing what she's asked to do. And that's a big addition to this team, because it's not going to be at this phase of the game, okay, we're going to go out and drop $100K and sign some superstar talent to replace Candace Parker. I mean, that's astronomical at this point. But now, okay, we're really looking around depth. And you talked about Emma Cannon added to this roster. That's an experienced player who can add added depth to this team. So my mind has shifted a little bit. I love Gustafson. I love that Cannon can add some elements and just steadiness to this team. I love the potential of Fair and what, who knows what can happen with Kate Martin. That'll be a great story. But it's guilt. It's by committee, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The end of the day, the Las Vegas Aces are a monster of Jackie Young, Asia Wilson, Kelsey Plum, and Chelsea Gray. It's a four-headed monster. And if those players are healthy, and if those players are doing what they do night in and night out, can those four remain healthy all season long? That's always going to be a question mark. Part of me does question, okay, it would be unbelievable to see that be the case for 3 years in a row, first and foremost.
Well, Rachel, I was literally just having this thought. What are the odds that all of them now, some people are going to say, well, in the finals last year, they weren't all healthy.
No, that's true.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It was 2 games out of 40 games. It's 2 games out of 80 games, basically. So and I'm not even talking playoffs. So forget playoffs, just regular season. It's like flipping a coin.
Yeah.
You flip the coin, you get heads. You flip the coin again, you get heads again. Now, it feels ridiculous and against all odds that you would get a heads again on flipping the coin, but it's still 50-50. So that's kind of where I am, is I completely agree. For the last 2 years, I'm like, no way they stay healthy. They play them into the ground. No way. Somehow they have.
Well, and I think, we did see it last year when Chelsea Gray went down. Kia Stokes, who is not one of the four-headed monsters, but just her understanding her role of this team and what she brings to this team. Okay, now you've got pieces, a couple veterans in Gustafson, Cannon, and then you've got some rookies who, who knows? They're going to get thrown out there into the fire from time to time. They're going to get experience throughout the course of the season. And I'm sure Hammond's going to talk about that. We've got to be able to develop these younger players, and they've got to be able to, contribute, especially when we get into the late portion of the season. You can't run those four into the ground 38, 35 minutes a game. Plum, I'm sure will. But I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see, how some of these new pieces to this roster rise to the occasion and the opportunity. That's the most exciting part. There's real opportunity with this Las Vegas Aces team to come in and be a key factor and be able to be a part of what we're talking about late in the season when they do make that late playoff run. I hope to God, knock on wood, everyone is healthy, and every team in the league this year, but injuries are going to be a part of it, especially in a year where it's a condensed schedule due to the Olympics, and then you're fitting 40 games in. Thank God for the charter news whenever that gets implemented.
Well, also you add, you just touched on that. Look at this team and how many of these players are playing in the Olympics.
Right. So it is a different year. People got to keep that in mind. And the wear and tear of the travel woes will not be as grueling as it used to be. Knock on wood, assuming that
this is actually happening.
Assuming that the real charter plan is in fact in play in the coming weeks. And how does that look? And how is that fair? How is that distributed? That's a conversation for a whole other podcast. But yes, there is very much a ton of question marks around that. But it sounds like it's on the way, and that will help every team in the league and the wear and tear on their bodies. But when it comes to the Aces, again, they did kind of show last year in those finals that other players were able to step up and contribute and play their role. And so, yes, health is a huge concern. We've been saying it for 3 years. You could say that about any team. You can say that about New York, Connecticut. Obviously, that's just a part of what we do. But I feel like this team is the favorite. I don't know that I can sit here and confidently say that it's like the gap is much wider than what I felt a couple of months ago. But
it has to be smaller after Candace Parker dips.
Yeah, it feels like, okay, it's probably about what it was at the end of the season last year. Okay, they're still the favorite. They're still the best team. They've got the dominance. They've got the edge. They've got the confidence. They've added some really solid pieces, but I don't know that they covered much ground when it was all said and done heading into the season here on what is it next?
The one thing I'll push back on that is the Kate Martin, Deja Fair ad. I'm big on those because when you look at the rest of this roster after their starting five, there's no scoring. I'm sorry. Sid Colson ain't scoring. Kirsten Bell ain't scoring. Emma Cannon ain't scoring. Megan Gustafson ain't scoring. Like Alicia Clark, she can score. Don't get me wrong. But to add a player like Fair is unfair. I had to do it because I think she can bring that element that this team has been missing without Raquana Williams. Without a player who can score in bulk, score in a variety of ways, and has high energy and high athleticism, and can finish by the hoop. I think that addition is going to be. I maybe, and look, I am somebody who gives a lot of crap to people who follow college basketball and then get lost in the college basketball and think, oh, this player can translate. For me, Vegas got two players that can translate to the W's play. Now, obviously, there's questions on how good they'll be, fine. But I think both of them can bring a positive impact this season to this team in a way that maybe that they were, their sliders were a little low in the past. So yeah, that's just, I'm curious your thoughts on can Fair be a bulk scorer at time? Can she be a microwave?
In spurts, yeah, I think so. Yes. Anybody who's watched Fair for the last 5 years and just how dynamic and did it at different levels and did it consistently. Now, is she going to come in and, average 20 plus? No, but can she come in and knock down some shots and be dynamic? And like you said, that microwave explosive, they've got that now on the roster. Kate Martin has proven time and time again to play much older than what she is on the court, in my opinion. and knock down shots and just be steady and consistent. That's all you need. Just a couple of players who continue to find their footing and confidence night in and night out. The other thing I want to add real quick, and I know you have a point you want to make. We've been able this last week to see some preseason games. Thank God. Just being able to get our eyes on some teams in the preseason.
Thank you to the basketball gods.
Yeah, at least for me, I know, you can take it with a grain of salt. You have to, but there are some teams that have seemed to take it seriously in terms of really playing it like a real game. And then you have other teams that are playing it like, the New York Liberty are, where they hardly play their starters the second half. You're working on just trying to get looks at, you don't want to run their legs into the ground. There's a whole lot of strategy involved with preseason, but we haven't had a chance to get a look at the Las Vegas Aces yet and what this team looks like on the floor out together. Now they are scheduled to play Puerto Rico national team on Saturday, so that will be interesting. It's not televised. We'll see if we can find some sort of offshoot link for that.
Maybe like Asia's mom could just stream it. Could we get another fan? Someone said this, WNBA Twitter, get it together. We have fans at all the games. Somebody bring a portable battery pack. Someone bring a Wi-Fi spot, whatever. The point I wanted to make was Kate Martin. This might be, again, not a college basketball genius, don't claim to be. In the games that I watched, this might be the craziest statement, so fine, whatever, I'm going to say it. I almost felt like she was more WNBA, I don't want to say WNBA ready than Caitlin Clark, but she seemed like a vet who I could see almost like an Alicia Clark type vet, or a player who's like a staple on a roster, not the superstar. No question, you're not the superstar, but a reliable vet. That's like the vibe I always got from Kate Martin's play. And I never doubted that if she got drafted or if she got a training camp invite to the right team, she can make the team. Because like I said, to me, she fits that need for these teams. And I'll just bluntly say it, she seemed more WNBA ready than Caitlin Clark in that regard, in being reliable on all these different levels. Caitlin Clark, obviously, higher potential, is going to be scoring more, assisting more, doing all those things. But she's also not. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Does it even make sense? Probably not.
I mean, to me, it's like comparing apples to oranges, I guess.
Okay. They're both fruit, Rachel.
They are both fruit. They're both basketball players. I think what we saw from Kate Martin the last few years was her ability to play along superstardom and complement superstardom in whatever way needed to happen. And also, she's like a coach on the floor with her basketball knowledge, I believe has ambition to be a coach. And so that basketball IQ, she's going to be like a sponge every single day, surrounded by the greatness that's on this Las Vegas Aces roster. And so what she has done is not just been able to step up when she needs to step up and knock down shots and make plays and not make bad decisions, but she's been able to play alongside, those superstardom. And we saw when Caitlin Clark struggled at times, it was a supporting cast that stepped up and knocked down shots. That's what made Iowa really, really good. It wasn't like Clark they would not be, in the Final Four the last 2 years, it wasn't for Caitlin Clark. But the supporting cast at Iowa was so good at what they were asked to do, and they were so clutch at what they were asked to do, and they were so in tune with one another in terms of knowing their role and understanding what was expected and going out and executing it, even at the highest levels. And a lot of that falls on Kate Martin. And so I think that's the most impressive part about her. I'm excited to see that translate now to the next level. Clearly, there will be a learning curve, as there is with everybody. But yeah, comparing them together is really difficult for me. I don't know that I can get down with
No, you already explained it perfectly. It's that I'll put it this way. Caitlin Clark's the superstar. Kate Martin is the Robin. I don't know if
perfect.
I don't know if Clark could be a Robin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But can Kate Martin go in there and obviously has an incredible basketball IQ and do everything and get ahead, and her learning curve and her knowledge and understanding of this adjustment is probably going to be much shorter than other players because of where she's at mentally as a player and as a basketball mind. It's going to be interesting to see how she adapts to the speed, the adjustments, the terminology, all of those things. But I know that Las Vegas, they've gone on record this last week of how much they are impressed with her, how much they love her and what she brings to this team. So, I mean, again, we haven't had a chance to see them. We'll see if anyone tomorrow in Columbia, South Carolina can get us a little
Please.
for that. And by the way, shout out to the Connecticut Sun, who I know were trying their damnedest to get us a link for the preseason game yesterday. Then it kept getting taken down. Very interesting times.
The best part, Rachel, was after they were like, "Oh, you know what? We want to get you to watch this. There's not going to be audio. We're going to put it on YouTube." Then the YouTube link didn't work, and everyone was up in arms. And they were like,
three times.
Oh, 3 times.
They put it up and then they got taken down 3 different times. And then finally they just put it on like their Twitter, like their Twitter stream.
Oh, okay. Because my favorite was just like their tweet that was something to the effect of like, "Hey, YouTube didn't want to let us stream it. But like, thanks for everyone wanting to watch it. Just remember, like, join us." Like, they turned it into like a cutesy, like, our season's about to start. Make sure you bring that same energy to watch it.
You know what? People can be all mad and up in arms, and I understand, but hey, I just appreciate the effort. They really were trying to get that on there. You gotta give credit to the team for trying to make that visible for fans one way or another. This is, again, the first year. How many preseason games did we get to watch last year? Maybe like one?
One.
I don't even know if that's
maybe true. 2. No, we got the Canada game.
Okay. Yeah, maybe like one or so. Like, this really is the first year that
we're hitting the point where like we're getting the amount of preseason games that 4 years ago would be on ESPN.
For sure.
That honestly, I never even thought about that. That is a marker of growth. We are getting so many preseason games. Look, I've been screaming from the rooftops. You and I have argued about this. I've been screaming from the rooftops. Give me every preseason game, right? I'm not going to all of a sudden, when you give me 5, go, all right, cool, I'm done arguing. No, I'm going to keep arguing for the rest of them. But that said, this is amazing. We get to watch the players play basketball and then formulate opinions based on watching them, not based on looking at a number on a piece of paper saying they scored this many points in this many minutes.
Right. I can look at how the New York Liberty got waxed by 50 by the Chicago Sky. I got to actually
58.
No, it was 48, 49.
48, 49, whatever. Hilarious.
I got to actually witness that instead of look at the box score and be like, what the hell happened? I actually got to watch it.
And be worried that the box score was inaccurate, like it's been at times.
So again, take that with a grain of salt. They did bounce back. Again, you can't really get too caught up in it. But I'm going to bring it up every now and then because it was that crazy. But yeah, back to the point, we can celebrate growth, but we can still demand more. And yes, you see the growth happening from so many angles. And I've said it to you. We've been texting about it a lot these last few weeks. This is going to be a summer of growth, but also growing pains. People are going to get exposed. Things are going to get exposed. The way things used to operate cannot be the way anymore. I think Joel Reeves said something similar to those a statement like that maybe a week and a half ago in regards to some of the preseason games. And so there's going to be a lot of moments like this where, the WNBA Twitter, the media, the coaches, people are going to have a lot to talk about this year because the growth and the visibility, the interest, everything is there. And things are going to get exposed. So there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. We can celebrate, but we can also complain and want to push the envelope a little bit more.
There we go. Hopes and dreams, expectations. I feel like we kind of touched on that, right? Hopes and dreams with Vegas. It's to win another championship, go 3 in a row. First team to go 3 in a row since the Comets.
Yeah, I mean, we're at that dynasty point.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a dynasty in your eyes? Is it back to back? Is it a three-peat?
So this is what I'll say for them. To me, the question is not the three-peat versus the two-peat. To me, it's you can win 2 back-to-back. That does not make you a dynasty because it's too short of a period. What makes Vegas have the dynasty argument in my mind is the years leading up to it. The years leading up to it, I mean, I think it's been since, 2019 or so? No, that was Connecticut. But they've essentially been in the semifinals of the finals for the past however many years. I don't have that stat in front of me right now. So for me, that's the the two, you need those championships. You can't be a dynasty without winning it, right? The New York Liberty are not a dynasty. It never works. They never won a championship.
Yeah.
So for me, Vegas actually finally getting those 2 rings, it didn't matter that it was back-to-back. It didn't matter if it was 1, skip a few, 2. Yeah. It's the fact that you had that buildup where, hey, we know, because to me, a dynasty is a team that's won championships and perennially is going to be around that championship game. And And that's what they are kind of right now, aren't they?
Contenders, and they're going to be playing it late into September.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, however you define dynasty, I think the hope, dream, and expectation for this franchise would be to three-peat. I think everyone has them as the favorite. If you don't, you're kidding yourself. And the hope is to stay healthy. The hope is that, you get some younger talent in here that really can stick, right? Because it's like we have to stop and we have to remind ourselves that we're living in such a cool moment in time. It's like the Lynx era of that greatness, the Comets era of that greatness, through different periods of time in this WNBA, short 28 years, there have been great rosters assembled that were able to be dominant and win consistently. And we're in that right now. That's the Las Vegas Aces, and it's not going to last forever. And so for me, I'm trying to remind myself that, take a step back, really enjoy this team and this franchise for who they are. How long does this last? It could be a couple more years. Who knows? How much longer can Chelsea Gray realistically play at the level she's been playing at? Maybe a couple more years. And so, just trying to soak it in and appreciate everything that has been built there in Las Vegas, because it has pushed the envelope. It has made everybody else step their game up. And then you've got a player like A'ja Wilson, who, in my opinion, is the most dominant player in the league. She is the most dominant player in the league. She's my preseason MVP. I think she's going to have a chip on her shoulder. She's going to be pissed off. Kelsey Plum's going to be pissed off. It's going to be her own revenge season in some ways. And so I think this team's going to be a ton of fun to watch this season. And we just gotta soak it up, and take it in stride, because it won't last forever.
Here's the thing, Rachel. You might know this. Talked about this. They call me hater, right? Natalie Williams. I have
these.
What?
You hate dynasties?
Yeah, I hate dynasties. No. So like, what I was gonna say is, honestly, the more and more I look at this now, obviously, in 2 years, I could be calling myself crazy, but the draft that they just had might sustain the dynasty longer, because the difference between the other dynasties we've had in this league is their inability to bring in the next wave of talent to continue the dynasty, right? Eventually a dynasty dies.
Yes.
But the idea is to prolong it as long as possible. With Minnesota, it was they added vets to the roster so that they continue to stay at that top dog. For Seattle, it was similar, adding vets. For the Houston Comets, it was that starting five. And then, plugging one player in here and there. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, obviously you're running out. Obviously the dynasty, once you hit the peak, the clock starts ticking. You can only last for so long. But the way to prolong a dynasty is drafting young players to replace a Chelsea Gray in a few years, to, fill in as a sixth woman for Alicia Clark in a few years, and so on and so forth. They're only going to last so long. You can only keep a roster together for so long. And that's why it's important to get players.
Well, and let's give them some credit. I mean, all of these, they just extended Jackie Young. They're extending players while the season is going on. It happened with Kelsey Plum, happened with A'ja. I mean, they are securing their players, there's no free agency talk. And again, it's probably early to be talking about this ending. We're getting really far ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm trying to look like years in advance. And I love these draft picks forgetting short term. Long term, I love these draft picks because will they turn out? Look, every team drafts people and thinks they're going to turn out to be the superstar that's going to change the franchise. But I look at these and I'm like, they don't need the way that Vegas plays. And obviously it's going to change over the next few years. But like the way they play, they don't need them to step in right now and be high impact. They can ease them in over the years.
Into the league, yes.
Yeah. And I just think that like I want to acknowledge and give props to Natalie Williams for been doing an amazing job really orchestrating this roster.
Yeah.
Rachel, you know how I like to end my episodes. Unless you have a final point. Do you have a final point?
No, I have an answer this time.
Well then tell me who's your GOAT, Rachel.
Candace Parker.
Everyone keeps saying that recently. I guess we'll just go with it.
Recency bias, I guess.